I'm not sure how to stand up here and pretend like I just didn't follow a neuroscience reanimating a cockroach. I mean, I just have to throw that out there. My name's Heidi Poscher. I'm a founding partner of Forum. We do real estate development and management here in Ann Arbor. I'm also a founding and managing partner of Dynamic Energy Group. We consult with electric utilities. And I'm a founding partner and the COO of Restream Energy. What I'm going to talk about today is the circular economy. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how my experiences with Forum and Dynamic Energy Group have influenced the work that I'm doing with Restream Energy and its efforts to become a developer of and a manufacturer of advanced materials using waste. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the circular economy and what it is. All right, if we think about how we consume goods and services now, it's very linear. We take raw materials, we produce something, we consume it, and then there's residual waste left over. And by and large, we just get rid of that waste. We take it to landfills, or there's a small amount of it that's currently recycled. But in a circular economy, we would limit that residual waste, and we would find ways to process most of the waste from our post-consumerism and put it back into the economy with new goods and materials, ultimately replacing what we are using today in terms of raw materials. Is that disruptive? Yeah, I think this is probably the mother of all disruption. If you think about it, we're not just disrupting an industry or disrupting a product or service, we're disrupting an entire economy by doing this. So it's going to require a great amount of change. What do we need to know about this? That change is going to have to be pervasive. That change is going to have to be financially viable and economically viable. If we take a look at how we do things now, you'll see on the right side of this diagram, there's a lot of baked-in capability. Product and service development, supply chain, usage and monetization. They're all very evolved processes. But on the left side of the diagram, we have an industry that's very nascent in nature. There's not much recycling going on. There's 7 billion tons of commercial and industrial waste produced domestically every year. Most of that goes to landfill. So there's lots of opportunity to take much of that waste and turn it into something new. But it's going to require a lot of economic change. So one of the things that we're taking a look at with Restream Energy is how do we use technology and the process of integration to not make mistakes that other technologies or other companies have made in terms of taking their disruptive technologies and falling short of the objectives. So what I'm going to talk about today is two examples that I've learned from both Forum and from Dynamic Energy Group about not necessarily failures, but how limits to disruption can really stem opportunities for full integration and full economic growth. So the first example that I have is Airbnb. And I would almost hesitate to call Airbnb a technology. It was more of a disruptive practice. Essentially what Airbnb's product is, it's a great marketing platform. I would say it's probably one of the best marketing platforms in the world. It's combined with what I would just characterize as a giant Slack channel. Those two things together are basically the technology around Airbnb. The analog to that in the hospitality industry is if you checked into a hotel and you picked up the phone to call the front desk, that phone could ring for 2 minutes, 2 days, 2 hours. That's basically what Airbnb is. It's a very analog experience. It doesn't provide a lot of downstream technology in terms of integrating real features or function. It just disrupted some real estate assets and became very successful. But in doing so, with that disruption, they didn't really create any disruptive value. They just created disrupted assets. And I think that's a really important watchword in terms of integrating into things like a circular economy. If you don't create inherent value all the way downstream, you miss the opportunity to create real economic value for assets. So Airbnb tapped into a new revenue stream. There are lots of people that benefited from that. But because there's no real downstream integration of technology or change in operations, those real estate assets don't change from just being the same real estate assets they were previously in terms of value. And that's because you can't take, there's not enough regularized operations to be able to take 365 days worth of Airbnb reservations and secure them as a financial asset. So the real estate just stays real estate. There's no value that's transferred into its ownership or into its existence, really. My second example is from the electricity distribution industry. So about 10 or 15 years ago, one of the big buzzwords around technology was this emerging smart grid. The idea behind smart grid technology was there was enough communication capability, there was enough technology, device capability, and the cost had come down enough that they could be married together to overlay distribution networks and create new forms of capability. I think one of the oldest tropes in the electricity distribution industry is that utility doesn't really know that it has an outage until a customer calls them and says, hey, my power's out. So the smart grid was supposed to take care of things like that. It was supposed to limit hours of outage. It was supposed to limit consumption and enhance efficiency. But what ended up happening with the smart grid was that the technology, the smart grid meter, and the wireless system really combined to just replace meter readers. That was the business case that utilities used to justify these investments, which isn't necessarily bad. It's great to get the technology out of there, but the shortfall was in the business models that were presented to public utility commissions in order to get these investments approved. So what ended up happening was there was limited upstream integration. So whereas Airbnb failed to innovate or integrate downstream, utilities failed to integrate upstream. And so what they ended up missing was the opportunity to create technology integration with other assets that could do things like really effectively lower consumption by 3 to 5% a year, or really effectively change outage minutes. The biggest negative takeaway was that public utility commissions really didn't do anything to change their recovery models, which and it would be really positive from an economic standpoint to change them from asset-based to performance-based. But that didn't happen, and it hasn't happened yet because of this insufficient integration. So when we take a look at the circular economy today, we have certain points of recapture, but they're very immature in terms of process. We've got recycling efforts over here on the left side. We've got a lot of advanced usage and utilization on the right side. The circular economy will depend on pulling those two aspects together and really being able to create economic contracts and securitize capabilities in order to bake this circular process into our modern economy. So just to recap here, conceptually, creating an economy isn't that different from creating an economic model. So we have to be careful that we don't fall into the same trap of not integrating upstream and downstream efficiently and effectively. We'll have to create a lot of disruption in order to get to a level of success, and that level of success is going to be driven by sustainability needs all over the world. the biggest takeaway, I think, is that relevant institutional models are really going to matter in terms of valuation and securitization. We have to find ways that institutional investors can underwrite these circular economy investments. So that's it. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.